You know, this is the inaugural episode of Libeerty Sports Podcast. Um, Eric, Jake, and father son duo here. Going to kick it off. We said that now's the perfect time to do it. I mean, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And
Right.
there's the college football playoff, right?
And it's the biggest college football playoff of all time, expanding now to 12 teams as we're used to the four. So we've got a lot to unpack now that we've expanded to this 12-team playoff.
And I'll tell you, this is actually legit because I think when we had the BCS, when we had the 4-team playoff, I don't think either one of those was any better than having the polls and voting on the polls and stuff like that anyway. You know,
No,
you get in there and there's always the battle of I mean, Georgia last year was left out and they should have won the whole thing and they would have won the
right.
whole
They would have won the whole thing. And obviously, they got stuck playing a Florida State team who, at that point, felt so disrespected that they just sat everybody. So, of course, it was a bloodbath. But I think even if Florida State did start everybody, it, the score maybe would have been a little bit different. Instead of what was it, 60-point game, it would have been the 52-point game, maybe. I think Georgia was that good last year. But
yeah.
I was like you mentioned now, we're moving on here. We've got a better system. Maybe. I mean, we'll see how this goes. There's still a lot of people complaining about the seeding of this year's 12-team playoff. The way that the teams are seeded, obviously the argument for Oregon being number one and having the toughest road to get to the national championship, having the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State, and then probably going to have to play Texas if they get through Clemson and Arizona State, which most people think they will. How is a one seed getting rewarded by having the toughest road to the playoff or the championship? But I don't know. I think all in all, it's still like you mentioned earlier. I think it's still a better system than before.
Yeah, I mean it is. Obviously, yeah, we'll talk about the seating. I mean, the seating is atrocious. I mean,
Yeah.
they tried to reward teams for winning their conference, which I get. You know what I mean? I mean you should be rewarded for winning your conference, but in my mind, if you're going to reward a team for winning their conference, then reward them for giving them a higher seed. Don't necessarily say, oh, okay, we're going to go ahead and give them a bye
Yep.
automatically or whatever, because we've got, look, I graduated from Arizona State. I'm an Arizona State guy. Love to see him finally being relevant, but at the same time, they have no business getting a bye and being a 4 seed, right? I
Right.
mean, so it's I mean, let's just call it out right now. I mean, Penn State, who hasn't beaten anybody, since the 2000s,
Right.
and we're rewarding them as a 6 seed with the easiest path to the playoff. I mean, they've got SMU. No disrespect to SMU, but they're SMU. Okay, they haven't proven anything. They haven't beaten anybody and all this kind of stuff. Then they go on to Boise State. And I will say this about Boise State. I mean, the one team that they did play this year was Oregon, and that was a 3-point loss. So,
At Oregon.
exactly.
However, it was week one, but still impressive with the way that Oregon's season panned out.
Yeah, but, the conference that, I mean, Boise, I think that's what hurt Genty in the Heisman voting was the fact that they didn't play anybody. Yeah,
Mhm.
you're going to rack up all these yards against these also rans and these teams that you're supposed to beat by 50. And how can you give that guy the Heisman? Well, how can you give them a 3 seed in the same breath? You know what I
Right.
mean?
And
And,
that, yeah. I mean, that's my problem. When like you mentioned Arizona State, right? They won the Big 12, whatever. Again, yes, Tennessee didn't make it to the SEC championship. Ohio State didn't make it to the Big Ten championship. But you're gonna tell me that Arizona State and Boise State should be seated higher than Ohio State or Tennessee? I no.
right,
However, I can see what they're doing with this because it's similar to the NFL playoffs, right? let's take the NFC North, for example, right? The Lions win the division. The Vikings have one more loss than the Lions. They are now a 5 seed, and they are going to allow a 10-7 Bucks to get home field advantage because they won their division. So I get it, right? It makes sense. It's just not looked at the same in college football.
But hold on, does it make sense though? Because I mean, we squawked. I don't know I forget how many years ago it was when Carolina is 16. They were what 7-9.
No, I'm not
Won
saying
their
that the
division.
seeding makes
Got to buy. You know,
right. I'm not saying that makes sense. I'm saying it makes sense why the college football committee would do that because that's how it's done in the NFL. I'm saying that's what makes sense.
I mean, the one
Not
thing.
the seeding itself.
I mean, we haven't even played this. I mean, we've got our first game going on tomorrow night. You know what I mean? We haven't even played this, and they're already talking about tweaking it because they understand. Well,
Yeah.
we went by what our model was going to be, and we're already seeing some flaws with it. But again, at the end of the day, I will say this. I want to bring up something that you mentioned earlier. You talked about, when Georgia and Florida State played last year, and Florida State sat everybody, and we've got all these kids now. If they're not in the playoff or they don't have a chance of winning the playoff and everything like that, then they're going to go ahead and sit from these bowl games. And I get it. You don't want to get hurt and ruin your draft and everything like that. Prior to the BCS and prior to the playoff system, guys weren't sitting because if they were in the top 10 and you're showing out for the voters at that point in time.
Right.
You're putting your best effort out there because you think that you still had a shot. And I think the BCS kind of took that away. I think the 14 playoff kind of took that away. But now we get 12 teams. It's a little bit better. I did see the one thing where they were talking about going to 14 teams and having 2 teams, top 2 seeds, number 1 and number 2 get a bye, and then everybody else kind of falls in line. I do like that. I think that that's probably a better model. But here we are. We're here with this one right now. And like I said, we're starting off. We got the first game tomorrow. We got Notre Dame and we got Indiana. I still don't know what to think about Indiana. I mean, who did they play? They played Ohio State and got beat pretty handily.
Yeah, we beat them by 90. Listen, they scored a junk touchdown at the end of the game, made it look closer than it was. Here's the thing I'll say about Indiana. Indiana has a great coach, but he took that program from nothing. And yes, I'm not going to say I was like to argue for the longest time that the Big Ten was the second hardest conference in college football, right behind the SEC. I would like to argue that they're better than the Big 12, they're better than the ACC. I argued that for a while. But I also contradict myself by saying that Indiana didn't play anybody.
It's really not that hard, though. I mean, it's the SEC and then it's everybody else.
Correct. And that's my point going back to Indiana got embarrassed by us, Ohio State. Now, what would a 11-1 Indiana do against a 6-6 Arkansas? I honestly think Arkansas would beat them by 3 scores. I really do. Arkansas beat Tennessee, one of my other schools. So that was one of the things. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen in the SEC, and any team can beat anybody. I mean, we talk about Vanderbilt beating Alabama, right. And to your point, what would Indiana do against Alabama? Let's talk about that. Like right. A team got left out, and you got. I mean, here's where you go: Indiana, you go SMU, you go Boise State, you go Arizona State, and even Clemson. Are they even competitive against Alabama? I want to say no, but this isn't Nick Saban's Alabama anymore.
It's a good point. This
isn't Nick Saban's Alabama anymore, and I think that obviously has something to do with. I mean, I don't know the exact stat, but it was the first time, and I think over a decade that Alabama lost 3 regular season games in a season. Now,
I don't have to stand in front of me, but that sounds about right.
You have to remember a lot of those guys came back from last year. from Alabama.
I mean, they lost. I mean,
They lost every school loses people.
You of all people know. I mean, Caleb Downs. He
Yeah.
transferred out. I mean, that's an absolute stud.
Mm-hmm.
And those kinds of they had some issues. They had some transfers, but again, let's not shift into another topic here because I can go all
True.
day on the transfer portal.
Transfer portal. All right, but let's go back. Yeah, before we get carried away, let's go back to our bracket here. We're starting off. By the time this video gets uploaded, this game will have happened or is going to happen the night that this video gets uploaded, this podcast gets uploaded. So it's going to be Friday night, Indiana in South Bend, just 190 miles apart from each other. It's going to be a crazy environment. It's going to be freezing cold there with touchdown Jesus looking over. I think Notre Dame wins this game by a lot because I think that Marcus Freeman has done such a great job up there. I should say I'm in Florida, up there in South Bend. And I think Notre Dame is kind of being overlooked right now. And I think it's because Notre Dame always gets overlooked. They're always, the independent team. They don't play anybody, blah, blah, blah.
They're not in a conference and all that stuff.
And you off camera have made a great point to me prior saying it doesn't matter if Notre Dame goes 12-0 and beats everybody by 50. They will always just kind of be, oh, I guess we'll throw Notre Dame in. Yeah, they can go in. Right? And that, to me, if that's what it's going to be, then Notre Dame needs to change that narrative by starting out strong this year, punching Indiana in the mouth, and then doing something against Georgia.
Yeah, here's the other part about it too. We talk about the seedings and everything else. No matter what you talk about Notre Dame, if Notre Dame does go 12-0 and beats everybody by 50 and has the hardest strength of schedule or whatever, with the way that this system is set up, the best they can ever do is be a 5 seed. They will never get a bye because they don't have a conference champion. Now, I hear people talking about all the time saying, oh, it's to their advantage. They don't have to play a conference champion. They don't get to. The committee showed that you are not going to get penalized for losing a conference championship game.
Now, and actually, you're right. And not even now. Even with the 4 team. Even with the 14 playoff
championship game, and they have the easiest path to the championship out of anybody. So don't tell me that it's an advantage to Notre Dame because they're in a position. They know they're at a disadvantage for not being in a conference. They don't care. You know what I mean? So I think that Notre Dame is like, you know what? Fine, bring it. We get a home game at least.
Yeah,
that's all we want.
And that's the thing. I think it's great that Notre Dame gets to start out with a home game. With all being said that we've talked about leading up to our prediction here, like I said, I expect Notre Dame to punch them in the mouth. I expect them to win by 2-3 scores here. I expect Indiana to keep it close going into half, just like they did against Ohio State. But I think second half, I think Freeman's going to make some adjustments at halftime, and he's going to be like, "All right, boys, let's get this thing going." And I think that they're going to go off in the second half. And like I said, it could end up being a 2-3 score game. But that's what they need. Notre Dame needs this, right?
They need to make a run.
They do.
They need to make a run. They need to show that they're relevant, and that it's not inflated, and it's not just the name, and it's not just the tradition, and everything else that's getting them, recognition and all that kind of stuff. They need to win. They need to show, and Marcus Freeman needs to show that too, because he's had some successes and stuff like that, but he needs to make a run.
He does, especially because he just signed that deal too.
Right. I mean, and we'll get into that too. That there was a reason why they locked him up. But I think the thing that's different about this Notre Dame team is that the defense is real. The defense plays, and the defense can lock people down. So with that being said, I like Notre Dame in this one. I like them to move on and go on and play Georgia in that one. Let's talk about the big one, the Ohio State Tennessee game.
Do we want to talk? Do we want to throw emotions to the side here, or what do we want to do? But no, I think.
Right, okay, so here's the thing. Hold on, let's just lay this out here right now. Okay. I had mentioned earlier, I graduate my undergrads from Arizona State, graduate degrees from Tennessee. So Tennessee, obviously, we got my son here. This is the Ohio State guy,
And the
attending.
Harper's relevant too, because Harper's wife went to Ohio State.
Attending Ohio State in the fall, and then my wife is Ohio State grad. So I got and look, I mean, we got
There
the
it is.
Ohio State helmet representing there too. Um, Here's the thing. This is probably until we get to the championship game. Maybe it maybe not even, but this is probably the best matchup of the playoff. I mean, I think. Yeah, you got a couple of two lost teams going at it, but um, I think it's the best matchup of the playoff.
I think the first round, definitely. I think it's the best matchup of the first round. And I say that because if Ohio State wins this game and gets their rematch against Oregon, I think that could be a really good game as well. But first, let's before we get to the predictions, because obviously I think we all know who I'm going to pick. It's pretty obvious. But what I want to back to my reasoning, other than being a fan, is I've watched Tennessee, obviously, because of you. I've paid attention to Tennessee all year. I think that as a whole, the team is ready. But I think their weakness is going to be Nico. And I think that is because he's not ready, right? Both losses of the season were on the road. One at Georgia. Okay, you can write that one off. The one at Arkansas is it's tough. And when he had his chance to be a hero and have his moment, he ran out of bounds with the clock expiring. Now, there's going to be a lot that goes into what I just said, but I think the moment's going to be too big for Nico because one, Ohio State, we are coming off the worst loss in the history of the school. That was the worst loss that this school has ever taken ever. So you got a young kid like Nico who I don't think is fully ready. He's coming into the shoe 2 weekends after the worst loss we've ever had at night. I think it's going to be a lot for him. I know if I was on the receiving end, I'd be scared. I would.
We could talk about them playing at Neyland North, up there with all the shenanigans going on with the touch
Yeah.
tunes, playing Rocky Top and all the Columbus bars, and
Yeah. So
the
for
the guy who changed Apple Maps to have Ohio Stadium say Neyland North. I mean, that stuff's fun. That stuff's fun.
yeah. I
Like
mean, I had some fun with it also when you had sent me that saying that the guy had played Rocky Top at all the bars in Columbus. I had went to my TouchTunes app, and when I was in Columbus over the last weekend, I still had all the bars that we went to on there, and I saw them. They were actually playing on my TouchTunes app, and I was like, okay, you know what? So I had to play a couple of Ohio State fight songs, but I mean, it's all good fun, right? That
that
right
part's fun.
there, yeah,
That part's fun. The one thing I will say is, I'm not a big fan of the whole flag planting and all that stuff and everything like that. Tennessee's done it, and probably if they
everyone's done
beat
it.
Ohio State, they're saying that they're going to do it again. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And the reason is because it's just like it's little brother stuff. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like you felt like you weren't expected to win, or you shouldn't have won, or you pulled off some big upset, so you're going to plant a flag. Like, act like you were supposed to win, act like you were supposed to
Mhm.
be there, and all that other kind of stuff. And we're not going to get into the stuff that happened with the Michigan Ohio State game, but that's
Yeah,
just
because
part of it.
I mean, that
It's
could be a
again,
whole episode of podcast
it's
episode alone, right?
it's little brother stuff. Yeah, I mean, like I said, like Tennessee, Arizona State was doing it,
Mhm.
trying to plant the flag at Arizona and all that other kind of stuff. I don't like it at all.
Mhm.
When Tennessee beat Alabama twice in the last 3 years, we rushed the field at Neyland. And we did it. And the reason why we did it is because we are Alabama's little brother. We are. I mean, they beat us 17 years in a row before that happened.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're gonna. It's gonna take 5, 6 wins before we get rid of that. That feeling of, oh, it's crazy we beat Alabama, right? And So that's why I say that. But anyway, let's digress. I like your point on Nico. I think he's a great talent, phenomenal talent. I think he's got a big arm. I think he's athletic as hell. He's a freshman, and he's still growing into his body in a little bit, and he's got to work on some touch passes. I mean, it was the same thing that we saw with Joe Milton a year ago, throwing the ball too far and everything else. I mean, he's no Hendon Hooker. I mean, okay,
Right. I
like
mean,
Hendon
yeah, that's
Hooker
good. It's
was
gonna take a minute before you guys can get yourselves
right.
something like that again.
But the one thing I will disagree with you on is I don't think Nico is the key to the game. As long as he doesn't turn the ball over, I think the key to the game is people don't talk about Tennessee's defense, and Tennessee's defense is one of the best in the country. And that was Ohio State's problem when they played against Michigan. Michigan's defense punched them in the mouth, and Ryan Day puckered up and said, "Oh boy, I'm scared to do anything creative at this point." We know that Chip Kelly was out looking for jobs and everything else before the game and stupid stuff like that or whatever. But I'm saying Tennessee's defense is going. It's whether or not Ohio State's going to be able to move the ball and score on Tennessee's defense. That's going to be the key to the game, and just whether or not Nico doesn't turn the ball over. I think it's going to be a good one. I don't think it's going to be high scoring. I think we might see another 13-10 game or 20-17 or something along those lines. But I don't think there's going to be many points. I think it's going to be a good one. I think they're both evenly matched. And their records indicate it. I think it's just a phenomenal matchup. I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
Can't wait. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'm
Sure.
going to go.
Yeah.
I think they're going to pull it out because of the defense, because of the defense, and I because of the defense, and because I have more confidence in hype than I do Day. That's where that's why I say I'm going Tennessee in that much.
That's fine. I mean, that's fine. Like I said, yes, the defense is fantastic. But once again, one turnover from Nico, and that thing is going to be busted wide open. And I'm going to tell you what, if Ryan Day can, man up a little bit and actually let Will Howard do what Will Howard can do, then yeah, it could. Again, I mean, this game could be a play from going drastic either way.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, Ryan Day's fighting for his job, right?
Right.
You want to go back to touching on something we talked about earlier. Ryan Day's fighting for his job. It's national championship or bust for him at this point in time. He has to win it all, and that is another reason why I give Tennessee the edge, because Ryan Day has proven that when the pressure is on him, he can't perform. Mm-hmm. And because he knows it's national championship or bust, then I think that's going to be a problem. We talked about the Marcus Freeman, yep. And the reason why they locked him up was because they saw the writing on the wall that, you know what, everybody's going to be coming for him. He's a stud of a coach, and he's an Ohio State guy,
right?
And
which is
Ryan Day gets fired. I mean, there's no reason why the university doesn't do everything they can to go try and get Freeman. But again, he just signed that big deal, so good for him. And that. But the other two games, I mean, we got Texas, Clemson. I mean, Clemson's, I don't know. I don't know what to think about Clemson, but Texas and Texas is Texas. Here's the thing. They didn't beat anybody this year. I mean, what was their best win this year? I mean, they beat Oklahoma. I mean, they beat A&M. I guess that's their best win. I mean, they beat Michigan. Michigan had 5 losses. I mean,
yeah, I think their best win might be A&M, because A&M is the hardest place to play in college football. That was what the rankings came out this year. They did a poll. They were saying that the hardest place to play in college football was A&M. Now, whether they're in the top 5, right? I don't care if you want to say it is or isn't or whatever. They're in the top 5. It's a tough place to play. Not only that, but it was a rivalry renewed that hasn't been played in some time now since A&M left to join the SEC. So it was I mean, the stakes were really high. That was a tough game to go and play in, and they got the job done. They did. So yeah, I would say that's probably their best win. They had two chances at Georgia, and they fell short. Um, so yeah, I mean, Texas looks good on paper, but right, I mean, really, what is their most convincing win? I mean, it's got to be A&M.
Got to be A&M. A&M's the only one. But then again, Clemson. Who did Clemson beat? I mean, they played in the ACC.
But we don't. I mean, but we don't have expectations of Clemson
You know,
anyway, though.
but
We
yeah.
have
So
some expectations of Texas.
I mean, that's why I give the nod to Texas. I give the nod to Texas in that one, and you know, just because I don't know what Clemson is. Texas is talented. They got talent across the board. I mean, they've got they got a backup quarterback that's probably could be the best quarterback in the country.
Right.
But so I go Texas in that one.
Yeah, I'm also going Texas. Um, Once again, Clemson had a nice Cinderella story there in the ACC championship. Walk it off with a kick. Dabo Sweeney was fired up. We've been here. He was fired up. Kind of sounded like Richard Sherman post game after he got paired up with a sorry receiver like Crabtree. But yeah, no, I don't care. I think Texas still wins that game.
Yeah.
And it's in Austin, so I don't see Clemson winning that one. Moving on.
Penn State, SMU, Penn State wins. Let's move on.
Yep.
It's
I mean,
just
come on.
it's just
But I will say, if we want to talk about coaches that are bad in big moments,
that's you're right. You're right.
he
He's
might be worse
one.
than Ryan Day
Probably the
because
worst.
we beat them at least.
Yeah. Well,
But again,
listen. I think 2016, 8 years ago was the last time that they had a relevant win in that program.
they
I
beat
think
us.
he's like something like 0-15
He's 1-8 against Ohio State.
when it matters. I think 2016 was what I think that was when he beat Ohio State.
Or no, he's 1-10 now.
He hasn't beaten in 8 years. He hasn't beaten Michigan or Ohio State. The only two teams that have ever mattered in the Big Ten. Other than the few years that D'Antonio was the coach at Michigan State. But outside of that, and so Penn State, they won the Rose Bowl, they won the Big Ten, they won the Rose Bowl. It's the first year that they joined the Big Ten. They had Kajana Carter, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. It's crazy. They had a really good team, stuff like that. Ever since they haven't been relevant. So,
right.
But they lucked into an SMU team that
right. At home.
I love seeing SMU. They had the death penalty back in the 80s and all the Eric Dickerson and all that kind of stuff. And they came back and they're relevant again. I kind of love it, but they're out of their element here.
Yeah. I would kind of like to see SMU win just for comical reasons, but
because I would love to see SMU and Boise State.
Yeah, in the second round. I think that would be pretty outstanding, right? But unfortunately, unfortunately, I think Penn State pulls it out. But
yeah.
So with that being said, there's our first round picks.
That's the first round. That's all we're doing. We're just going to do the first round. And I will say this: as far as you have to give me your national champion, but we won't go through all the games. Just give me your national champion. 1, 2, 3, go.
Come on. OHIO.
I think it's Oregon's year. I do. I mean, they've been kind of just like hovering. They've been like that good team, whatever, and all those other kind of stuff. I think that I think it's their year. I think that they're finally gonna get over that hump. They're very talented. I'm gonna go Oregon.
Right.
So there it is. And
hey, they're number one in the country still, the only undefeated team in college football for a reason. So I don't see how many can disagree with that.
Right. So no, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. But
we get rolling here Friday, December 20th. Indiana at Notre Dame kicks this thing off. It's going to be a good time.
All right. So talking about the college football playoffs, and there, a couple of times we brought up transfer portal, we brought up NIL. I'm not a boomer. Um, I'm not. I'm kind of a traditionalist, but not a 100% traditionalist. But we do have
Well,
to talk about this NIL and the transfer portal stuff because it to me it's getting out of hand.
so before you rant, because I know you're about to go on a rant because you've been talking about it. I want to say something real quick before you rant. So, um, obviously we've kind of introduced ourselves a little bit, and you know us. It's Arizona State, Tennessee. We talked colleges, our college that we reside with, whatever. We were both born and raised in Michigan. Okay, so we're huge Lions fans. I am on top of the St. Brown podcast. I watch every week. Amon-Ra Equiminius. Amon-Ra went to USC. There it is. Yeah, wrong way. There we go. Boom. Um, Amon-Ra went to USC. Equiminius went to Notre Dame, and they had the same similar conversation on their podcast just a couple days ago that dropped this week. Amon-Ra asked Equiminius if the NIL and the transfer portal was a big thing when we were in college, what would you have done? Would you have left Notre Dame? Equiminius, now, obviously, he says this now, right? But he claims that he would not have left Notre Dame for any amount of money. He claims also that they probably would have been paying him, but he says that, yes, teams probably would have offered him more, but he would not have left Notre Dame because Equiminius loves Notre Dame and he reps it all the time. So with that being said, I like hearing the opinion from the other guys, right? The guys who are past that time of the NIL and the transfer portal and all this. Just a quick, kind of precursor of where we're getting ready to go, because he said he's a traditionalist and stuff like that. So you take guys who aren't that long ago. I mean, think about it. Equiminius. I mean, what, 4 years ago when he left Notre Dame? 4 or 5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, within 5 years, right? So this is very recent, and even they are saying no. I wouldn't have left. I wouldn't have taken the money, whatever. Obviously, they say that now because they're making money in the NFL. But on the topic of traditionalists and times changing and stuff like that. So with that being said, Dad, the floor is yours. Give us your opinion on the NIL and the transfer portal.
So I saw a thing today, and I saw to where, and I forget who it was. Jake, maybe you can pop this up in post production or whatever. But
Yeah.
who it was that reported that with the Bill Belichick signing at North Carolina, that now like his whole thing is the college world is changing. I mean, Nick Saban said it. He's like, I can't coach in this
Yep.
new world of college football. And it's changing. And so Bill Belichick's like, I want to go there and I'm going to create a feeder system to the NFL. This program is not going to be a college program anymore. This program is going to be a feeder system and a minor league, if you will, for the NFL. Look, I understand that. I get that. And I will say at the same time, like years ago, college football players couldn't even have a part-time job in the offseason without violating the NCAA rules, which was ridiculous. They absolutely should be able to get paid. My problem comes when you have boosters and people associated with the universities that are drumming up these funds to sway kids to go one way or the other based off of what the university, now not necessarily the university themselves, but what their boosters and their alumni and everybody associated with the university is going to pay them. Look, I get it. If Nico wants to sign a deal with Nike, then let him sign a deal with Nike. Nike doesn't have anything to do with the university paying them. Nike can pay anybody at any university and those kinds of things. If you want to get a deal, you want to get a sponsorship, Roback, whatever, anywhere, get it, get paid, and that's fine. That's great. I understand all of that. But when you have Dave Portnoy going out there and rallying up these people to flip a person specifically because of the university and those kinds of things, and that's where I think we're going awry with it. And you've got a situation to where, like, we talked about Texas down there in Texas. I mean, we talked about Quinn Ewers, who, started out at Ohio State, transferred down to Texas, and then now all of a sudden, this whole thing, Arch Manning is sitting there, and Arch Manning is the highest paid college player that there is, and he's a backup, and he gets thrown out there for fourth down situations as a running quarterback every once in a while and everything. And because of that now, Quinn Ewers is like, well, I either have to go to the NFL or I have to transfer.
Right.
Okay. And so let's go back to what we talked about. I started going down a road, but what I saw was that North Carolina it was reported that North Carolina is getting ready to offer both Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning a ton of NIL money to come there and play for them. That is where I have the problem. You know what I mean? The university should not be utilizing this money to sway whether or not a kid goes to the university or not. A kid should be able to sign the same deal with whatever brand they want to, whether they play at Siena Heights University or they play at Notre Dame or at Alabama or anywhere else. That's where the money should be, not based off of the universities and swaying kids to go one way or the other. Because here's what the problem comes into. Now we also have the situation with this transfer portal. I mean, DJ Ugungule, who's sitting out there, and he's played for 17.
Yeah.
Rising, who's on his 18th year and everything else because of all these different rules and everything. And you got players. I mean, let's talk about it. I picked Oregon to win the whole doggone thing. I'm getting worked up. What the dick is his name? The quarterback.
Dillon Gabriel.
Dillon Gabriel's. This is his third team. It's his third team.
Yeah.
He started out at UCF and it's like, okay, UCF, I want to go play for, then I'm going to go to, Oklahoma. And, you had Caleb Williams and you got all these people. Nobody plays for a university for 4 years anymore.
Right.
I understand if you get into a situation to where you were recruited or whatever, and now all of a sudden they've recruited somebody else and all these other things. And it might not be the situation or the atmosphere that you liked. And you said, you know what, maybe I made a bad decision. I want to go somewhere else. Okay, guess what? You get one transfer. And you're done. How about you sign a contract? Maybe when you sign your letter of intent, you sign your letter of intent for a certain number of years, and it's a contract. So I can say, I'll sign for your university, but I'm only going to sign for 1 year. And that university might pull their scholarship. They might pull their offer. And they might say, okay, well, we're going to go in another direction, and then we're not even going to give it to you. Or you could say, you know what? I'm going to give you 3 years. I'm going to sign a contract for 3 years. Because now I know that I'm going to do this for 3 years. And as a coach and a coaching staff and everything else, I know that I can rely on having a quarterback or a receiver or a running back or whatever for the 3 years that you signed that intent for. I understand. It's just like with the college football playoff. Let's go to 12 teams, right? Let's go to 12 teams. Yay, we all went to 12 teams. We realized the seeding sucks. It's stupid. It's bullshit. It doesn't make any sense. Okay? It's just like the NIL. Let's give them money. Okay, well, just no parameters, no thought to it whatsoever. Let's have a transfer portal. Okay, you can transfer every single freaking year if you want to. Let's have a little bit of common sense. Like, yes, we're evolving. We're making changes in the college game, the things that should have had common sense to it a while ago or whatever. And I get that. But at the same time, like, let's do it with purpose. Let's have an intention behind it.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I don't care if a quarterback for the University of Iowa is making $10 million because some, farm tractor John Deere decided to give them $10 million. That's fine. But when it's tied to the university and saying that this is a condition of whether or not you come here, that's where I have the problem with it. And again, like I said, to sit there and say, oh, well, now at North Carolina, we've got a new coach and everything else. And we're going to have a lot of donor money and we're going to try to go ahead and flip guys from Texas.
Yeah.
Like, Arch Manning was making $3 million a year.
Yeah.
What are they going to offer him at North Carolina? $5 million a year?
Yeah. They probably can.
Play
And they
10
probably will.
snaps.
Yeah.
It's getting ridiculous. And somebody needs to figure out how to rein it in and rein it in quickly, but also be fair to the kids. Because again, like I said, it didn't make sense that they weren't able to capitalize, especially in this world of social. I mean, hell, when we're doing this, I mean, it's on YouTube and social media, everything else. Yeah. They can make money off of it. Like, fine. But don't tie it to the university. Don't make it a condition of you being there. And the whole Bryce Underwood flipping from LSU to Michigan and all that just because of the money. He should be able to make that $10 million in LSU or in Michigan and not have it matter about what university he's going to. That's where
I agree. And especially because think about it. We came from a time where players were getting suspended, getting their scholarships pulled. Reggie Bush
taken away.
Reggie Bush got his Heisman taken away for stuff like this. And now people can do what Reggie Bush did with triple the money that Reggie Bush made. And it's like, okay, and now they can flip their decision like that.
I get it. It was a problem. It was a problem because I worked at Foot Locker in Ann Arbor. Charles Woodson would come into my store and his jersey number 2 was sitting there hanging up on the wall and we were selling the shit out of it. And he came in and he was like, I don't get a dime of it.
Yeah.
The only reason why you're selling them is because of me. If it was a number 1 jersey, you wouldn't be selling any of them. You're selling them because it's a number 2 and that's what I wear on the field. And I get it. And that makes sense. But at the same time, if he was wearing number 2 at Florida State, he would have been making it. This is the same thing. It shouldn't be tied to the university. Yes, make the money that you can based off of endorsements, based off of sponsorships, based off of those kinds of things. If you want to do Abe's Car Lot and do a commercial for him and they're going to pay you to do it, do it.
Right.
But don't make it a condition of you playing at that university. That's where it becomes wrong.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I see all the points to it. Obviously, I'm the younger generation. But it's even gotten to a point where these kids are younger than me, man. This Bryce Underhill.
You're getting old.
I'm
getting old. Yeah. You're getting old, my guy.
This was it Bryce Underwood?
The only guy.
What is it?
The only guy in
Carrie Underwood.
The only guy in college football that's older than you right now is Cam Rising. That dude is 37 years old.
Yeah, he's 30. Yeah, he is 37 years old. He's redshirted 15 years in a row.
I have eligibility left.
You do. I also have eligibility left. We might go try out for a kicker at Ohio State at this point.
Well, that would be a good thing.
I'll tell you what, though. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, the younger generation. So I understand chasing the money, right? Like, you're not as broke as you've ever been. And when you're in this age range of 18 to 24, that's when you're the brokest ever, right? Is a normal life, right? Obviously, you've got, the Charlie D'Amelios who dance on TikTok and they've made more money than I'll ever touch in my life by the time they hit 20 years old. But I'm saying, like, I get why these kids are going to sit there and be like, okay, I'm going to chase the money. I get it. When you're at a young age, you don't know, right? Like, if somebody came up to you right now, it's different.
They can make money on TikTok and on Instagram and on all this other kind of stuff.
They used to not be able to, though. Donald De La Haye.
Look at me. It shouldn't be tied. Nico can make money anywhere he wants to. He doesn't need to be at Tennessee to make money. He can make money wherever he's playing, and that should be the case. His decision to play college football at the University of Tennessee should not be tied to whether or not he's going to make money, because I don't know.
His Nike deal. His deal with Nike should be paying him the same amount whether he goes to Tennessee or whether he goes to Auburn. Nike should pay him the same amount.
It should be off of these other companies and these other opportunities that they have. It shouldn't be specific. Like when Charles Woodson was talking about his jersey being sold, it was a Nike jersey. Okay. And so Nike wanted to sponsor him, then they should have been able to sponsor him and give
Right.
him a cut of the money and everything else. But it didn't have anything to do with him playing at Michigan. If he would have played at Ohio State, or if he would have played at Penn State, or if he would have played anywhere else, it would have been the same.
Right.
And the fact that you're sitting here and you're flipping a kid who committed to LSU and you're flipping him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, he was a Michigan kid, played at Belleville,
Right.
which is right down the road from Ann Arbor,
Yeah.
and made a decision to go to LSU. Something made him choose to do that.
Right.
And then now all of a sudden you throw $10 million at him, and he's
He's like,
like,
I'm
no,
staying
you
home.
know what? I think I'm going to stay home at Michigan.
Yeah.
And a month prior to that, Dave Portnoy came flat out and said, listen, I'm going to rally anybody I can because I don't like Davis Warren and I don't like the way that Michigan's playing. So we need a quarterback, and I'm going to front my own money and rally all the boosters and everything to get us to flip a quarterback.
Yeah.
That shouldn't be the
Yeah.
case.
It's absurd. It is.
Unbelievable.
It's absurd. And I know, obviously, I know destroying Donald De La Haye has obviously got some words to say about this. He was the kicker at UCF when he was making money off YouTube. And the university came to him and said, hey, look, you're either on the team or you go make YouTube videos. And he's like, I'm making money. So he chose to do YouTube, got cut. He had a stint in the Canadian Football League. He was signed to the San Antonio Bravos in the UFL recently. He's making so much money on YouTube, and he's known in the football world. So I think overall it panned out for him because I think just as a kicker at UCF, yeah, maybe he would have got drafted, maybe he got picked up, whatever, but I think deciding to keep making YouTube videos and the career that he's had and the athletes that he's collabed with and the actors and the people that he has made videos with and has been in contact with. He did videos with Kevin Hart. He had hosted 7-on-7 tournaments in NFL stadiums. The NFL sponsor, the NFL posts him on social media. So in the long run, it paid out for him. But imagine if he had that opportunity at that time to make $10 million just from Nike and the university alone, and then also go on YouTube and make another $10 million to make these videos that the university at the time said he couldn't do. I think that, yes, obviously times change, but it went from it wasn't gradual. It was from you can't get paid to here's 10 mil, like within a season.
Exactly. It went from Law and Order to martial law in a matter of seconds. And I think what we need to do is we need to have people just sit down and be logical about the situation. You know what I mean? It's look, again, I'm not trying to be a boomer. I'm not a boomer. I'm a Gen Xer and all that other kind of stuff. Look, I get it. I get things change, and I get that things should change. Like I said, these kids, I mean, a lot of people can make a lot of money off of them and everything else and all that other kind of stuff. You know what? Let them get a piece of the pie,
Yeah.
But also at the same time, let's be logical about it. Right. Like, I mean, think about it. You think about players. I mean, you think about players that are in the NFL and that have been in the NFL for a little while, and they talk. Even if guys that get traded or whatever, and they've been on 2 and 3 and 4 teams, one thing that they can go back on is, where did I play?
Yeah.
I mean, you see teams. You see guys on teams, like you had Cole Kmet and Caleb Williams, had the bet. That's not a good example because Caleb Williams started out of Oklahoma, but
yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? Like you got guys that go back to their university. Who's
all right? I'll give you a good one.
I'll
give you a good. You wanted to, well, yeah. I mean, he's played in every university in the history of the world. No, Aiden Hutchinson and Taylor Decker. They had a bet on the Lions. Taylor Decker went to Ohio State. Aiden went to Michigan. and they both did all their time there.
And
Taylor
they
didn't
love
start
their
somewhere else,
universities.
and they love him. I
They
mean,
would have
Taylor
played for
Decker has
3 universities. Which
yeah.
one are they they're gonna go after? I'll
Taylor
tell you
Decker
this.
has the block O tattooed on him.
I have a hard enough time. Like I said, I graduated from Arizona State and graduate from University of Tennessee. I have a hard enough time with those two.
Right.
Not to mention,
The teams you grew up with,
teams I grew up rooting for or whatever. I couldn't imagine if you sit there and you play for these schools and everything else, and you play for 5-6 different schools.
right?
You'll lose that, and
Is it just the
that's one of
last
the
one you
things
were
that
at?
people talk about in the NFL. I mean, hell, Peyton Manning, great Tennessee quarterback that he played for 2 teams, and he tries to root for both teams, but
It's tough, right?
yeah.
You got the Broncos, you got the Colts. He won a Super Bowl on both. I mean, it's just like it's who do you like? Tom Brady even with the Colt or with the Patriots and the obviously everybody knows Tom Brady for the Patriots, but
what about those guys? What do they go back to? What do they go back to? Peyton Manning goes back to Tennessee, and Tom Brady goes back to Michigan.
Well, that is recent. He didn't go back to Michigan for a long time.
No. What I'm talking about is where their heart is, where
is Brady's heart really at Michigan still though?
I mean, that's what he says. That's what he's all about.
Of course he says that. Of course he says that.
Even though he got booed off the field the whole time.
That's what I'm saying.
Let's just come up with something. Like I said, number one, let the money come from elsewhere other than being tied to the university. Let the transfer portal be either a one transfer and done, or you sign a contract with the university, letter of intent. Like when you sign your letter of intent, like what we talk about, like National Signing Day. I mean, hell, Bryce Underwood signed a letter of intent with LSU and then flipped. Okay.
Is it Underwood or Underhill? What is it?
Underwood.
It's Carrie Underwood?
Yeah, Carrie Underwood.
Okay.
So when you sign a letter of intent, you can put a time frame on it. I'm going to sign a letter of intent to University of Minnesota for 1 year. Or I'm going to sign a letter of intent to Nebraska for 3 years. And when you do that, then you're tied in. After that 3 years is over, you can go ahead and transfer all day long. If they agree to let you sign a 1 year letter of intent, that's on the university.
Right.
And you can go after that. If you want to do 4 1 year letters of intent and the universities are okay with it, then go ahead. But at least make it known. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, was it 700 kids entered the transfer portal?
Right. I mean, think about it. Marshall had to withdraw from their bowl game against Army because they didn't have enough players because everyone was in the transfer portal. Army had to go out and find another team to play them in the bowl game.
I'm going to tell you one thing. This is where the problem comes into with the transfer portal and the NIL. We talked about all this other kind of stuff and everything else, but here's just a big example. You know who Jack Pyburn is?
I don't know who that guy is.
You have no idea who he is.
I don't know who it is.
You have no idea who he is.
Why would I?
Jack Pyburn, Florida Gator. He's a linebacker for the Florida Gators. Okay.
Florida.
So what he said was, I want some guarantees if I'm going to come back to the Florida Gators next year. And here's what my guarantees are that I'm requesting. I need $45,000 a month.
A month?
A month. I need $45,000 a month. I need to be guaranteed that I'm the starting outside linebacker. I also need to be guaranteed that I'm going to play on third downs. You can't just start me and then take me, out for nickel packages and stuff like that. I also need more snaps in the rotation. Florida said, dude, no, that's
I mean,
crazy. So
first
what
of
did he
all,
do? He's in the transfer portal.
now what school is he going to go to next with the same demands? And who's going to give him that?
It's for me, the 45K a month. I was like, what is that? See, there's the other part. The school shouldn't have the ability to determine how much money they're going to get. That's where the thing is. And as far as requirements on start, no, you have to earn and keep your job. There's no guarantees in anything. There's no guarantees in there's no guarantees in the NFL. There's no guarantees in college. There's no guarantees in life, whether it's sports or anything else. There's no guarantees. And if you're going to sit there and you're going to tell me, oh, he said Jack Pyburn.
The absolute gall from a kid who was on a team that went 7-5.
This is where we're at.
Way.
This
a
is
kid that nobody knows. All right. Guys, I live in Florida. I know so many Gator fans down here. I guarantee you, none of these people know who that kid is.
No idea who a Jack Pyburn is. And I'll tell you what, and he's not the only one. And I'm calling him out, but I'm not.
We're calling him out because that's when
calling him out.
But he's not the only one.
There was I don't even know the dude's name at UNLV that was like, oh, I was supposed to get this money, but I didn't get what I was going to get, and all these kinds of, you hear it all over the place. Kids everywhere are saying these things like they were promised this, they didn't get this or whatever, or dude, I'm going to go here for this, or playing time and all this other kind of stuff. There's no guarantees in life.
Right.
Every single snap, you have to earn the ability to play the next snap.
Right. Exactly. And back to my main point, play better. Yep. Play better.
Yep.
You want more snaps on third down? Play better then. Make the stops on third down. You shouldn't have to play that many. Listen, my biggest thing is you should only have to play 1 third down a drive. If you're that good, play better. You should only be 1 third down, and then you stop them and they're off the field. Right. You shouldn't have to play multiple third downs. Stop them on the first one. You want all this, play better. And this is the other thing. Now that this is an option for all these kids, they're not going to sit there and be like, I need to play better. They're going to be like, oh, well, now that I know this is like, imagine if Travis Hunter didn't win the Heisman this year, right? Imagine if he had a terrible year. Because he's Travis Hunter and he's playing for Deion Sanders, he could have made a request like this and they would have been like, okay, he's Travis Hunter. They wouldn't have paid attention to his stats. And that's the problem now. Nobody's going to, if you have a name, obviously these kids don't have names for themselves, right? But let's say a guy like Shedeur Sanders or a guy like Arch Manning comes out and is like, this is what I need. Now the media and everybody's going to sit there and be like, well, you got to give it to him. It's Joe Schmo. You have to.
And
he's the guy.
And then the coach's head's on the chopping block because they didn't pay this player or whatever and all these kinds of things. We just saw what happened with your Ohio State Buckeyes, right? Julius Sayin comes transferring in from Alabama, and then you get St. Clair, who's an Ohio kid from the Bell Fountain area, and and then Aaron Nolan's like, oh my gosh, I gotta compete. I don't want to compete. I'm out.
Aaron Nolan was the 5-star. Aaron Nolan was what St. Clair was.
6 5 stars.
Yeah.
They bring in 6 of them, and I'll beat them all out.
Right.
What happened to that mentality?
That mentality was gone in the 90s.
It's unbelievable. I liked it. You talk about that. I would have liked to have seen. Bringing up Charles Woodson. They brought in 6 5-star corners and everything else. Do you think Charles Woodson would have been like, well, I want to transfer? Or do you think he'd have been like, fine?
He's like, all right, let's do it.
Playing every down.
Yeah.
You're wasting your time recruiting these dudes.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And it's
it's a different world, different
Mamba mentality. Nobody's got that Mamba mentality anymore.
Yeah. That's what I say. You think Kobe cares who's on the court? Come on.
What was that story you told when Kobe was warming up?
Yeah, my favorite one is so 2 stories about Kobe, and I know we're getting a little sidetracked here, but I gotta see.
So this will be our send off here.
You brought
R.I.P. Kobe. Gotta love him. Let's do a good Kobe Mamba mentality story. Send us off for a quick recap.
so I'm a youngin, and this was Kobe's first year. He's 18 years old, and this is playoffs, and Lakers are playing the Utah Jazz, and it's in the conference finals, and it's I forget what game it was. I don't have it on the top of my head, but coming down and Lakers are down, and Kobe comes down and he fires up a three, air balls. And so then they foul, they get the ball back, whatever, come down again. Kobe fires up another three, air balls it. Foul again, come back down. Now you're thinking, there's no way in the world Kobe's even touching this ball, but Kobe's got the ball.
Yeah.
And you're thinking this 18-year-old kid just fired up two air balls at a critical point in the game when the game is on the line. What does he do? He pulls up three, air ball, third one in a row. I turned to my buddy at that time and I looked at him and I said, this dude, everybody's like, oh my God, the guy shot three air balls. And I'm like, I'm going to tell you something. To have the guts to sit there and say, I don't care what just happened. I still have enough confidence in myself that I'm still better than everybody else out here. And I'm still going to dominate you and everything. And obviously they lost a game, whatever. Jazz went on to lose the Bulls the championship and all that kind of stuff. But another one of my favorite stories of Kobe is I heard Jay Williams talking about it. He told it.
This was the one I was talking about on the court before the game.
And so Jay Williams, he's out there, and it's the first time he's playing, in LA. So he's like, I want to go out there and I want to get a feel in the court and everything else. And he's way out there hours and hours before the game. Jay Williams goes out there and Kobe's out there on the floor. And he says, Kobe's not just out there shooting around. Kobe's like running sprints, jab steps, dribble pull-ups, like just going hard. So Jay Williams is out there, and Jay Williams is kind of like watching him. He's doing his thing. He's going through his routine and all that kind of stuff. And he's out there for probably an hour, hour and a half. He said, Kobe's still going the whole time, going. Did not let up the whole entire time. Jay Williams goes in. Kobe's still out there. After the game, I think Kobe put 50 on him that day.
Yeah. I mean, it's just Kobe.
And so Jay Williams goes up to him afterwards. He says, dude, he's like, how long were you out there? Like, what were you doing out there? Kobe looked at him and he said, I couldn't let you think that you could outwork me. I couldn't even let you think it.
Right.
Like, that mentality's gone.
Yeah. And right. Now we circle all the way back.
It's gone.
That, and everybody wants to talk about ever since, rest in peace, ever since Kobe passed, Mamba mentality has gotten even bigger than what it was. But it's cool to say Mamba mentality, let's lock in. Well, no.
You could say it, but
you can say it, but like the Mamba mentality was not normal.
Kobe never said I have Mamba mentality. No. He just had it.
He just had it. Right.
He didn't have to say it.
Yeah.
And that's what we talk about with these kids with the transfer portal and everything else. Like, look, I get it. Like, I get it if you feel like you're in a bad environment that's bad for your mental health and those kinds of things. You need to be able to get out of it. I understand. But just because you have a little bit of adversity, just because you have a little bit of a challenge, just because you are chasing more money, I
agree.
Let's reel it in. Let's reel it in. Figure it out and get this stuff under control.
Yeah, but I agree. Well, I think folks, that's probably all we got here. Episode 1 of many for Libeerty Sports going forward. Make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube. That's probably where you're watching or listening to this now. Clips will be all over TikTok, Instagram. Make sure you follow both of those accounts as well. We'll post more than just podcast stuff. A lot of content coming your way. Dad, anything else you got?
Let's get it.
Here we go, fellas. Make sure you guys hit us on all the socials. Stay tuned. We'll be back with some more as this college football playoff goes on. And we got some NFL talk going forward, too. Don't worry. We're not just college guys. We'll talk everything. All right? Anything you guys need. Thanks for watching.
Go Vols.
OH. IO.